Unit 1. Information Overload. 1.1. Exercise 6. Part 1.
Who are the three speakers? Why are they having a meeting together?
Hello, Dr. Lucas.
Mark, welcome and thanks for coming along to share your experience with us today as a final year student. Can I introduce you to Jenny Boylan, who's in her first term here?
Hi, Jenny. And how are you enjoying university life?
It's great, though I'm having a few problems on the study side.
Well, that's exactly why I've arranged for us all to be here this morning.
The older woman, Dr. Lucas, has set up the meeting so that Jenny, a new student, can get some advice about studying from Mark, who is in his final year.
Part 2.
What did Mark find difficult when he started at university? Was it the subject he was studying or something else?
Well, that's exactly why I've arranged for us all to be here this morning. Now, Jenny, the first thing to say is, don't worry. Many students feel a bit at sea with their study techniques to begin with. Isn't that right, Mark?
Definitely. When I started here, I found it so different from school. It wasn't that the subject itself was suddenly more challenging. I've always loved history and been confident in my field. But at school, I really only had to use a couple of core textbooks to find out what I needed. While here at uni, I was presented with huge resources, the library, the internet, with little idea of how to use them efficiently.
Exactly. The main problem I seem to have is time wasting. I can spend a whole day in the library and come away feeling I haven't really scratched the surface.
Mark didn't find his subject, history, any more difficult. His problem at first was learning how to cope with much bigger reference sources than he had had to use at school.
Part 3.
What two things does Mark suggest Jenny should do from now on when she's in the library?
Could you give us a concrete example of what you see as time wasting, Jenny?
Well, yesterday I had to do some background reading for an essay. I took down a big book from the shelves, thinking it would be useful. The title seemed to fit my essay topic, but it was hopeless. I sat there with it for nearly 2 hours, reading chapter after chapter, thinking that eventually I'd find what I needed. But it never happened.
OK, Jenny, first piece of advice. Don't wander along the library shelves looking at book spines. Titles can be very misleading. You'll save time by putting yourself in front of a computer and using the search tools to locate books or articles on your topic. Didn't they explain this to you on the library tour at the start of term?
I forgot to go.
OK, well, make sure you fix up another tour immediately. They're still running them once a week, you know.
And another suggestion, Jenny. Don't just rely on books. You're likely to find much more up-to-date information in periodicals and journals, you know.
Right. I'll look for those then.
Mark advises Jenny to use the library's electronic search tools. He also advises her to look for relevant articles in periodicals and journals instead of only using books.
Part 4.
Why does Dr. Lucas warn Jenny about using the internet as a source?
And what do you both think about using the internet?
Well, it isn't always used very productively. Sure, you can get lucky and find something really useful, but other days you may retrieve virtually nothing. And perhaps even worse, sometimes you're totally inundated with possible material, and then you don't know where to start.
Mark's right. I think you have to be extremely careful in this area, especially in assessing the accuracy of the facts themselves. You see, there are no quality controls on the web. Information can become out of date or maybe false or biased to start with. Use it by all means, but always evaluate what you find. You must be absolutely certain of all the sources you quote in essays.
I've got a lot to learn, haven't I?
That's true, but we're here to support you. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about asking me for more help and advice, and Mark is willing to act as your student mentor too.
In fact, why don't we go for a coffee now? Then we can get to know each other a bit better.
Thanks, I'd like that. And thank you, Dr. Lucas. It's been really helpful.
I'm pleased. Right, off you go then.
Dr. Lucas explains to Jenny information on the internet isn't always reliable because it may be out of date, inaccurate, or biased.
One point one. Exercise 7. Part 2.
Well, that's exactly why I've arranged for us all to be here this morning. Now, Jenny, the first thing to say is, don't worry. Many students feel a bit at sea with their study techniques to begin with. Isn't that right, Mark?
Definitely. When I started here, I found it so different from school. It wasn't that the subject itself was suddenly more challenging. I've always loved history and been confident in my field. But at school, I really only had to use a couple of core textbooks to find out what I needed. While here at uni, I was presented with huge resources, the library, the internet, with little idea of how to use them efficiently.
Exactly. The main problem I seem to have is time wasting. I can spend a whole day in the library and come away feeling I haven't really scratched the surface.
Part 3.
Could you give us a concrete example of what you see as time wasting, Jenny?
Well, yesterday I had to do some background reading for an essay. I took down a big book from the shelves, thinking it would be useful. The title seemed to fit my essay topic, but it was hopeless. I sat there with it for nearly 2 hours, reading chapter after chapter, thinking that eventually I'd find what I needed. But it never happened.
OK, Jenny, first piece of advice. Don't wander along the library shelves looking at book spines. Titles can be very misleading. You'll save time by putting yourself in front of a computer and using the search tools to locate books or articles on your topic. Didn't they explain this to you on the library tour at the start of term?
I forgot to go.
OK, well, make sure you fix up another tour immediately. They're still running them once a week, you know.
And another suggestion, Jenny. Don't just rely on books. You're likely to find much more up-to-date information in periodicals and journals, you know.
Right. I'll look for those then.
Part 4.
And what do you both think about using the internet?
Well, it isn't always used very productively. Sure, you can get lucky and find something really useful, but other days you may retrieve virtually nothing. And perhaps even worse, sometimes you're totally inundated with possible material, and then you don't know where to start.
Mark's right. I think you have to be extremely careful in this area, especially in assessing the accuracy of the facts themselves. You see, there are no quality controls on the web. Information can become out of date or maybe false or biased to start with. Use it by all means, but always evaluate what you find. You must be absolutely certain of all the sources you quote in essays.
I've got a lot to learn, haven't I?
That's true, but we're here to support you. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about asking me for more help and advice, and Mark is willing to act as your student mentor too.
In fact, why don't we go for a coffee now? Then we can get to know each other a bit better.
Thanks, I'd like that. And thank you, Dr. Lucas. It's been really helpful.
I'm pleased. Right, off you go then.
1.1. Exercise 10. A.
I don't know. About 10 hours, I think.
B.
Well, if you can afford to, it's obviously preferable to do nothing else apart from studying, but many students have to work as well to support themselves. That's much harder.
C.
To study in Britain.
D.
A lot. I usually spend up to 3 hours each evening in the library, and then I'm there all day again on Saturday. I always have Sundays off, though, to play football. You need to relax sometimes.
E.
For me, the most important thing is to improve my vocabulary. I must learn more words, especially ones that are important in academic English.
F.
I'm planning to apply to a university in New Zealand next year, but I want to take the test first to see whether my level of English is high enough. I hope it will be.
G.
It doesn't matter. You can do either.
H.
Maybe grammar or listening or something like that.
Unit 2. Only a game. 2.2. Exercise 3.
Hello, Pirko. I'm phoning to let you know that my college basketball team are very keen to come over to Finland to take part in the Tampere Student Games.
Well, that's great. We're hoping to make it a really special event this year, as it's the 80th anniversary of Finnish student sport.
Fantastic. We're all looking forward to coming. Let me just check. The games start on May the 19th, right?
Oh, that was the provisional plan when you first contacted me, that they'd run from the 19th to the 23rd. But we've cut the program by a day, so now it'll begin on the 20th, still ending on the 23rd. There's going to be an opening ceremony on the first evening.
We don't want to miss that, do we? And how much is the entry fee for the games?
This year it's gone up from 16 to 18 euros a day per person, I'm afraid. But you get a lot for that.
How do you mean?
Well, of course it covers the competition entrance, but you also get 3 meals a day and even floor space if you want it. We can't manage beds for everyone.
Sounds a bit basic to me. Can you recommend a hotel?
Well, Tampere is quite a big city, so there are a lot of hotels. The homeland would be convenient if you come by train, or maybe you'd prefer the Härmika, as it's offering a reduced rate for participants in the games. It's spelled Hermica. It's a very nice hotel.
And where is it exactly?
Well, that's the other good thing from your point of view. It's in the Härvanta district of Tampere, near the University of Technology.
And why is that good for us?
Because all the basketball matches are taking place near there.
Oh, I see.
Look, why don't I give you the website address and then you can look up the program and find out anything else you need to know.
Good idea. So, what is it?
Okay, it's www.cellgames. That's SELLGAMES.com.
Brilliant. I'll have a look now. Thanks, Pirko.
See you soon then. Bye, John.
2.2. Exercise 4. Examples.
It's the 80th anniversary of Finnish student sport. It's 18 euros a day.
1.
Welcome to our 15th annual event.
2.
No games were held in 1940 due to the war.
3.
Please report to the track supervisor by 9:13.
4.
The water temperature today is 6 degrees.
5.
Approximately 19% of runners have sponsorship.
6.
In our questionnaire, less than a 70th of those asked played korfball.
2.2. Exercise 5.
MICHAEL SCHUMACHER. Michael Schumacher.
SERENA W I double L I A M S. Serena Williams.
T I G E R W O D S. Tiger Woods.
L A N C E. A R M S T R O N G. Lance Armstrong.
P A R K J I hyphen S U N G. Park Ji-sung.
Unit 3. Brands. 3.1. Exercise 2. Questions 1 and 2.
At first sight, a bank account may seem very different from a laptop or a university, but what they have in common is that they're all products. Until relatively recently, the term tended to be restricted to manufactured goods, such as furniture or books, but now it's applied to virtually anything that's the focus of marketing activity. That is, activity to attract the attention of the general public, or perhaps companies. In terms of business, though, products are generally either manufactured goods, such as a laptop, or services, like bank accounts or training courses. But because the purpose of the producer is to sell, pop singers, holiday resorts and so on can also be marketed as products, the purpose being to publicise that particular pop singer, etc. These days, more and more people are even managing themselves as a product, for instance when applying for jobs.
Questions 3 to 9.
In this analysis of products, it's consumer goods that I'll focus on first. These are products that are manufactured and sold to members of the public, or consumers, rather than to companies. Normally, with consumer goods, a number of manufacturers make similar products and compete for sales. Levi Strauss has manufactured jeans since 1873, and until the early 1960s, it was unusual in that it had virtually no competition. Since then, a lot of other manufacturers have entered the market. As a result, Levi's market share, that is, its percentage of all the pairs of jeans that are sold, has fallen dramatically. Marketing is all about getting people to buy from you. One way of achieving this is by advertising, but another crucial element is the creation of brands. Until the late 19th century, it was simply soap that people bought, or a dress, or whatever. But then manufacturers, including the soap maker Pears, began to realise that by giving their product its own name and advertising it to the general public, they could encourage purchasers to ask for their goods and not those of a competitor. By the early 20th century, advertising was to be seen everywhere. Brand names fall into two basic categories. Some manufacturers, like Microsoft, create a strong identification between the company and all its products by using the same name for both. Other companies use a variety of brand names. Procter & Gamble produces around 300 brands altogether, and it also sells several washing powders under different brand names in order to maximise sales. Tide, Ariel and Daz are just 3 of these. Often, companies manufacture a product line. Take the car manufacturer Ford, for instance. One of its cars, the Focus, is a product line consisting of closely related versions of one product sold under the same brand name. All the brands and products that a company produces make up its product mix. Ford specialises in one type of product, cars, while Yamaha has a much more diverse product mix, which includes motorcycles, musical instruments and electronic equipment. Now let's turn briefly to retailers, such as the supermarket chain Tesco. Retailers are businesses which sell directly to consumers, usually in their stores or retail outlets, but in some cases by mail order or through the internet. They usually sell branded goods which they've received from the manufacturer, but like Tesco, they may also sell their own brands, which are normally goods that they buy from a manufacturer and sell under their own name. So, for example, alongside the Heinz brand of baked beans, Tesco also sells Tesco baked beans. A brand doesn't just have a name, however. Most have a logo which the company wants the public to associate with the brand. Coca-Cola's logo, for example, is the distinctive way in which the name is written. Now, I just want to mention one or two others.
.1 Exercise 5 Example
Produce.
1,
Producer.
2,
Product.
3,
Produce.
4,
Production.
5,
Productive.
6,
Productivity.
7,
Compete.
8,
Competitor.
9,
Competitive.
10,
Competition.
Unit 4 Spotlight on Communication 4.2 Exercise 2 Questions 1 to 4
It's a striking feature of languages that different varieties acquire different social values. Any social group develops norms of behaviour, such as wearing certain styles of clothes, and members of the group are expected to conform to those norms. Since language is a form of behaviour, the group develops a distinct variety of language too, which helps to maintain and signal group identity. This variety comes to reflect the social status of its users. The higher this is, the greater the prestige of the variety of language. Standard varieties of languages serve the needs of the national rather than the local community, and are associated with the goals and values of nations. People who use standard varieties tend to be well educated, so the standard is usually thought of as a model of correct language, and other varieties as incorrect. All varieties of language reflect social relationships, and the judgments we make about language are often disguised social judgments. For instance, when parents tell their child off for using slang expressions, it's probably because they're afraid that other people will think the child is of lower status than they wish him or her to be considered.
Questions 5 to 7
In fact, the English are very aware of social differences in accent, and can usually work out from it a person's region of origin, social standing, and standard of education. Accents are also classified aesthetically. In one experiment, it was found that British people, who recognised where each accent came from, preferred rural accents to ones from British cities such as Birmingham or Liverpool. However, people from other countries, without that knowledge or the social attitudes that go with it, assess the pleasantness of the accents differently. Language is also a symbol of identity. People from a particular region, such as Yorkshire in the north of England, may take pride in their local speech as part of their pride in their local culture. and may make an effort to retain their accent if they move to another part of the country. Attitudes towards different varieties of language can be remarkably powerful. In another piece of research, people listened to the same argument against capital punishment spoken with different accents. Some accents were effective in changing people's views on this matter, while others weren't. Listeners were also asked to rate the quality of the argument. Generally, when the case was argued in an accent of high prestige, it was thought to be better argued than when presented in accents of lower prestige. Clearly, we need to be careful about how far our attitude to other people is affected by our reaction to their speech.
4.2. Exercise 8.
I. Language. Sit. Wanted. Instead. Set. Come. Run. Not. Quality. Key. Receive. See. After. Heart. Laugh. Air. There. Ear. Here. Although. No. Ow. Found. Now.
Progress Test 1. This test is in the teacher's book. You will hear a man phoning a company about a job. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, Human Resources Department. Cheryl speaking.
Oh, hello. My name's Jeff Brooks. Are you the right person to speak to about the marketing jobs you're advertising?
Yes, I am. Which one are you interested in?
The vacancy for a market research assistant.
Ah, yes. Well, let me start by telling you something about the company. Ackroyd Music has 3 main divisions. One produces music videos and DVDs. There's the CD division, and the job you're interested in is in our online music division, which we're currently in the process of setting up.
What does the job involve?
It's part of a team that at first will be carrying out research into our existing customers so that we can target our advertising more effectively. We already have a data bank in which sales are analysed according to customer profile. That is their age, sex, where they live and so on. This particular post is for someone to build on that by discovering what people think of the Ackroyd brand, both customers and non-customers. That information will help to determine the way that we plan our advertising in future.
I see.
As for getting the information, we already have questionnaires used by our other divisions, which will need to be adapted, probably by one of our existing staff. The new assistant will be required to lead focus groups of potential customers, and then there'll also be telephone interviews, which other team members will carry out.
Right.
Now, the new division will come into existence next March, but the appointment is from April, because that's the earliest the new marketing manager can start. We're hoping to choose all the new staff by February so people can give a few weeks' notice to their present employers before they start work.
Right. What are you looking for in applicants for this position?
We want someone who's enthusiastic about music and can convey that enthusiasm to potential customers. A qualification in marketing would be good, but it isn't essential. We'll provide training ourselves if necessary. And similarly, relevant experience is desirable, but we want someone who's quick to learn, even if they're new to this type of work.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Now, I expect you'd like to know the starting salary. The scale for research assistants is £16,000 to £20,000 a year, but for this post we're appointing at £18,000 in recognition of the fact that it'll be a pretty demanding role, especially at first. There are some additional benefits too, including a car and possibly pension contributions, though that hasn't been decided yet.
OK. Now, the advert said the job will be based in the east of England. Will it be at your London office?
No, this division will be at a new location in Jaywick.
I've never heard of it. How do you spell it?
Jaywick. It's quite small, so I'm not surprised you haven't heard of it. It's near Southend.
So it isn't very far from London. That's where I live, and I'm hoping not to have to move.
It's about 30 kilometres east of central London and 10 kilometres from the coast. The person appointed will need to spend 1 or 2 days a week in London as well.
Oh, that sounds perfect. Well, I'm very interested, so could you send me an application form, please?
Of course. I can send you one by email, but you'll need to get it back to us by post, along with a covering letter and copies of certificates of all exams you've passed.
OK. Well, my email address is jeff.brooks.
Unit 5. Is plastic fantastic? 5.1. Exercise 5. Questions 1 to 5.
There are so many different types of plastic, and it's such a versatile material that it's now used in thousands of ways, and we find it difficult to imagine living without it. Plastics are the choice for so many products, featuring in different areas of our lives at the moment, from car parts to toy parts, from soft drink bottles to the refrigerators they're stored in. I believe that there are 3 main reasons why plastics have scored over other materials in satisfying the consumer's needs. These are safety, performance, and last but not least, value. Just consider the changes we've seen in the food retail business in recent years. The introduction of plastic bottles has meant that even an economy-sized bottle of juice can easily be lifted. Glass is much heavier, of course. And should you accidentally drop that bottle, it's far less likely to break. Plastic wrap helps keep food fresh and free from contamination, which is particularly important with meat. In each case, plastics help to make your life easier, healthier, and, of course, safer. Plastics also help you get maximum value from some of the high-cost items you need to buy. They ensure that cell phones and laptop computers really are light and easy to carry. They help to make sure that major appliances, like refrigerators and dishwashers, will resist the corrosive effects of moisture and certain chemicals, which guarantees they'll last longer. These appliances also operate more efficiently thanks to the use of plastics. Food safety is of key importance to the consumer, And packaging, such as heat-sealed plastic pouches and wraps, means the resources that went into producing the food in the first place aren't wasted. It's the same thing once you get the food home, where resealable plastic containers keep your leftovers protected. In fact, packaging experts have estimated that every kilo of plastic packaging can cut food waste by 3.74 kilos. That's a statistic that very few people are aware of. Plastics also help to conserve energy in your home, lowering your heating and cooling bills by cutting electricity consumption. Indeed, plastic parts and insulation have helped to improve the energy efficiency of air conditioners by up to 50% since the 1970s. And these appliances run more quietly than earlier designs that used other materials. In short, I believe plastics are a very good thing for the human race.
Questions 6 to 10.
In the opinion of a growing number of environmental campaigners, the plastic bag is an unnecessary and damaging item that we should get rid of at all costs. This simple innovation, which was welcomed in the 1950s as an attractive modern material with many practical applications, is now seen by many as a major source of pollution. 1957 saw the launch of the sandwich bag, first produced and promoted in the USA as a good way of keeping lunchtime snacks fresh and clean. American companies quickly recognized the value of plastic bags, and by 1966, the bread industry, for instance, used them for about 1/3 of packaging. But it wasn't just in the area of food packaging that the plastic bag was beginning to enjoy success. In 1969, the New York City Sanitation Department's New York City experiment showed how much cleaner, safer, and quieter it was to use plastic bags in garbage collection, and the public soon started to line their metal trash cans with specially produced bags. However, even in the late 1960s, people were still bringing home their shopping in baskets or brown paper sacks. The commercial production of plastic grocery bags didn't start until 1973, with the opening of the first manufacturing plant. The plastic carrier bag soon became an indispensable part of everyone's life, something that governments and campaigners worldwide are now trying to reverse. In 2002, for example, the Irish government introduced a new tax payable by consumers of 15 cents a bag, which in the 2 years following its introduction raised €23 million for environmental projects. In the same year, the government of another country, Bangladesh, had to take a more drastic approach, banning the production of plastic bags and introducing an on-the-spot fine for using one. Since then, many governments have introduced similar measures, and it now seems that the days of the plastic bag may indeed be numbered.
5.1. Exercise 6.
In each case, plastics help to make your life easier, healthier, and, of course, safer.
5.1. Exercise 7. 1.
For the walk, you'll need to bring sandwiches, chocolate, and most importantly, plenty of water.
2.
The product comes in 4 colours: red, green, blue, and, unusually, purple.
3.
During the experiment, you should monitor your temperature, pulse, and last but not least, heart rate.
4.
In August, the weather will be a bit windy, dry, and, without a doubt, sunny.
5.
Plastics are used in computers, televisions, and, naturally, mobile phones.
Test folder 3. Exercise 1. 1.
What type of food do you enjoy most?
Fruit.
2.
Do you enjoy cooking?
I don't eat much for breakfast or lunch. I usually have my main meal in the evening.
3.
Why do some people avoid eating food they're not familiar with?
I'm not altogether sure, but maybe they were brought up to eat only what they know is safe.
4.
Do you have any plans affecting your work?
I have plans, yes, certainly. I want to live in Canada or find a nice apartment. On the other hand, it's work too.
5.
Do you think it's important to visit other countries?
Yes. Maybe people should go abroad so that they can compare that country with their own.
Test folder 3. Exercise 3.
I'd like you to describe an occasion when you were pleased that an object was made of plastic.
Right. Well, I'd like to tell you about a plastic fork. Once I was sitting in a motorway cafe with a friend. We were on our way to see some other friends for the weekend, and it was quite a long drive, so we stopped to have a break. I was eating a cake, which was full of chocolate and cream. It was very tasty, but I was using a plastic fork that was quite small and not very practical. I was annoyed that the cafe didn't supply metal ones. Anyway, we were sitting there chatting and eating when a group of children and a couple of adults came into the cafe. The children were aged about 7 or 8, and they were running around chasing each other. The adults weren't doing anything to stop them, and I commented on this to my friend. Then, as they came past our table, one of the children pushed another one who fell heavily against me, jerking my right arm across my body, and I was holding the fork in my right hand. The fork hit my left arm, scratched the inside of my elbow, and covered that part of my arm with chocolate and cream. Luckily, the scratch wasn't serious, and when I'd washed my arm, I was fine. But I was glad the fork was made of plastic. If it had been metal, it would probably have broken the skin and made me bleed.
Do you think anyone watching what happened felt the same way as you?
They probably thought it was funny, but I hope they'd have been pleased that the fork didn't hurt me.
On the whole, do you prefer plastic or more traditional materials?
I usually prefer traditional materials like wood or cloth, but sometimes it's better to have plastic.
Test folder 3. Exercise 5.
Could you describe how people use plastic credit cards?
Yes, they are used instead of cash to buy goods in shops or pay bills. They can be used for paying online too, when you just need to give the number on the card and some other details.
Can you contrast carrying credit cards with carrying cash?
I think the biggest difference is that when you pay for something with a credit card, you don't really feel that you are spending money. So the danger is that you spend far too much.
Can you identify ways in which credit cards have changed our spending habits?
When we see something we want but can't afford it, in the past we generally saved up to buy it, but nowadays we're much more likely to buy it on credit card. So as a result, a lot of people get into debt.
Unit 6. Music Matters. 6.1. Exercises 3 and 4. Extract A. Extract B. Extract C. Six point two. Exercise 2. Example.
Chris, we need to get on with planning our performance.
OK, Hannah, are you happy with the pieces of music that we chose?
Yes, they're fine.
Right. So we need to choose what should be happening during each piece. We'll be performing in the college theatre, so there's a good sound system for the recordings. We'll have the stage for the live action, and there'll be a giant screen at the back of the stage that the film and slides will be projected onto.
Excellent.
Have you got the running order of the music we agreed on?
Yes, here it is. The first piece is that exciting section from Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture.
Ah.
What do you think would go well with it?
How about one of us reading a really dramatic speech?
But the music's very loud. It'd be impossible to hear any kind of speech even if we shouted. I think projecting a film of a firework display onto the screen would work better.
Well, it would certainly get everyone's attention. OK, we'll do that.
Questions 1 to 8.
What's next?
The Balinese Gamelan Orchestra. It's a very delicate sound, as though the instruments are some distance away and the sound is being carried by the wind.
How about if we stand on opposite sides of the stage and say sentences that aren't connected, as though the audience is hearing snatches of different conversations blown by the wind?
Nice. Then the mood changes with a Jamaican steel band. That's very upbeat and exhilarating. I'd like us to do some tap dancing in a factory surrounded by steel drums.
In a factory? Oh, film us there, you mean? Yeah, good idea. I'll find out about possible locations.
Next, it's the Indian sitar music.
I think we should have someone on stage doing traditional Indian dancing. In fact, I know just the person, Jayashree Begum. I'm sure she'd agree to do it.
Perfect. OK, then the next piece of music is the South American panpipes. Any ideas?
I could recite a South American poem.
Or maybe we could have some pipes and mime playing them ourselves.
Isn't that too literal? I'd like to be a bit more imaginative.
Maybe you're right. OK, we'll have the poem. With you in a spotlight and the rest of the stage in darkness.
Right. It's all beginning to take shape, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, the next piece is the slow part of Mahler's Fifth Symphony. I imagine this starting with the stage still in pitch darkness. Then the lights come up very slowly. So the audience gradually realises there are people standing there, absolutely motionless.
Maybe lit from behind, so we're in silhouette.
Lovely. And then we start swaying and doing very stylised, formal gestures, mostly with the arms.
Oh, that sounds great. Right, what's next?
The African band. You know, the one from Mali.
Ah, yes. That'll be a complete contrast. Really lively. It'll make people want to leap to their feet and fling themselves around. How about getting the audience to dance?
What, suddenly shout out, "Everybody stand up and dance"? I don't think so. I'd rather we created a sense of place and endless time, with slides of Mali showing the Sahara Desert, Timbuktu, some of the ruins, each one dissolving into the next. It'd be a striking contrast with the music.
I still like the idea of audience participation.
But it would be awfully embarrassing if we asked them to dance and they didn't.
Yeah, I suppose so. OK, we'll go with your idea.
Right.
And the next section?
That's the didgeridoo.
Oh.
As it's an Australian Aboriginal instrument and so unusual, maybe we could show a film clip of it being played.
Or we could learn some traditional Aboriginal dancing.
No time. I know. How about a complete contrast to make people sit up and think? We could do a comedy sketch, standing quite still on opposite sides of the stage. If we get the timing right, we could fit the sound of the didgeridoo to the words.
Hannah, that's an absolutely crazy idea.
Oh.
And I love it.
Thank you. Well, the last piece is the electronic music by that German group, Kraftwerk. That'd really lend itself to a way-out gymnastics display.
Maybe some film footage of the Olympic Games from years ago.
Or we could ask the college gym team to perform on stage.
Yes, let's do that. After all, we want to involve a lot of people in this.
OK, well, there's plenty for us to do, isn't there? So why don't we start...
6.2 Exercise 4 1.
Sit, sit.
2.
Said, said.
3.
Run, run.
4.
Song, song.
5.
Not, not.
6.
Gate, gate.
7.
Ear, ear.
8.
Now, now.
9.
Heat, heat.
10.
Wrong, wrong.
11.
Worth, worth.
12.
Show, show.
Listen and repeat. 1.
Sit, set.
2.
Said, sad.
3.
Ran, run.
4.
Sung, song.
5.
Not, note.
6.
Get, gate.
7.
Ear, air.
8.
No, now.
9.
Eat, heat.
10.
Long, wrong.
11.
Worse, worth.
12.
So, show.
Unit 7. Worlds to explore. 7.2. Exercise 2. Questions 1 to 4.
There are two main types of device in which people can travel underwater. Diving bells, which are lowered and raised from the surface and can't be propelled forwards, and submarines, which do have a means of propulsion. It's possible that Alexander the Great descended into the sea in a diving bell 2,300 years ago, although this hasn't been proved, and some sort of submarine may also have existed in China not long afterwards. The first workable submarine of recent times was designed and built in 1620 by a Dutch doctor living in London, Cornelius van Drebbel. This was a fully enclosed boat, propelled by the crew, who used oars, as in a normal rowing boat. The crew breathed air through tubes from the surface of the water. The submarine travelled along the River Thames for several hours, at a depth of over 4 metres. Later in the 17th century, the British astronomer Edmund Halley patented a diving bell linked by pipes to barrels of air. Manned descents to depths of over 18 metres, lasting up to 90 minutes, proved that diving bells were practicable devices. A number of experiments took place in the next 2 or 3 centuries, including one submarine in which the crew turned a hand crank to propel the vessel mechanically. Jumping now to the 1930s, 2 United States explorers, William Beebe and Otis Barton, developed a bathysphere, which means deep sphere, in which they dived to 922 metres. The bathysphere was just large enough for 2 people and was raised and lowered from a ship by a steel cable. Electricity reached it along a power line from the mothership, and the 2 men breathed oxygen from tanks fitted to the interior. They had a telephone link with the ship and were broadcast on the radio all over the USA.
Questions 5 to 9.
Nowadays, we have submersibles that can withstand the immense water pressure far below the surface. One of these deep submergence vehicles, as they're called, is Alvin, which has been in use since 1964. A typical dive lasts 8 hours and descends to 4,500 metres below sea level. Alvin is used for various scientific purposes, including, in 1985 to 86, surveying the wreck of the Titanic, the ocean liner that sank in the Atlantic in 1912. The first thing you notice about Alvin is its bright red sail, displaying the name of the vessel. The sail is on top of the vehicle, at the front, and helps to maintain stability. Alvin is about 7 metres long and just over 3.5 metres high, but only a small portion of that space is available for people. This is in the pressure sphere, which is located under the sail at the front of the vessel. With a diameter of about 2 metres, there's room for 3 people, but it's a tight squeeze. Usually, there's a pilot and 2 scientists. From here, they can look out in various directions through 4 viewing ports. Alvin carries a large number of instruments, including video and still cameras, mounted on the exterior at the front, along with lights for illuminating the ocean, as of course sunlight doesn't penetrate this far down. Usually there's a stowage basket mounted on a frame at the front, used to hold tools and scientific equipment. Immediately under the sail is the hatch, which has a diameter of only 50 centimetres. This is the way into the vessel. On top of the sail, there's a current meter to measure the movement of the ocean. Propulsion is provided by 6 electric thrusters, which make Alvin very manoeuvrable. 3 of them are for forward and reverse movement, 2 for vertical motion, and a final thruster, right at the back of the vessel, turns the submersible round. Now we'll turn to other uses.
7.2. Exercise 6. 1.
Aquatic. Damage. Expand.
2.
Advantage, aquatic.
3.
Advantage, damage.
4.
Any, many.
5.
Because, quality, what.
6.
Advantage, after, answer, can't, chance.
7.
Also, small.
8.
Able, change, space.
9.
Prepare.
Test folder 4. Exercise 2. You will hear part of a lecture about the history of European exploration. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
The explorations by Christopher Columbus and other Europeans during the 15th and 16th centuries showed a subtle difference from earlier journeys. A new element in the ethos of the time was a thirst for glory and recognition of the individual, which joined religion and riches as a major factor in exploration. Regardless of the explorers' motives, those who crossed the oceans were able to navigate much more accurately than before, thanks to the development of the quadrant and other instruments, as well as a better understanding of the functioning of the magnetic compass. This, along with improvements in cartography, made voyages somewhat less dangerous. During the 18th century, there was a renewed emphasis on exploration for scientific purposes, and to improve the stock of information and understanding that was available. European intellectuals became aware of their ignorance about certain aspects of the physical and natural world, and were keen to do something about it. Many ocean voyages were on vessels that were basically floating scientific laboratories. They had trained scientists on board, as well as a vast array of equipment, and skilled artists and draftsmen to make accurate records of the voyage. In the 20th century, countries competed to gain prestige. With less and less land to discover and claim, there were races to the North Pole, the South Pole, Everest, the depths of the oceans, the Moon, and Mars. The equivalent of exploration in the 21st century often has more to do with overcoming physical challenges than discovering the unknown. Not simply to reach the peak of Everest, but to reach it alone, or without oxygen, or in the shortest possible time. Exploration has turned inwards. Once we explored what is out there. Now we explore the limits of what we can withstand.